What is structural injustice, and why is this kind of injustice distinct from other kinds of injustices?
Yes, so I think the first thing that's worth clarifying is that structural injustice is concerned with inequalities in societies, and sometimes globally, that result from how people are positioned in society and in relation to each other. So it's not about punishment or liability for wrongdoing. And it's also not about distributive justice, which is concerned with fairness in the distribution of resources or opportunities. Rather, it's the idea that as a great number of people in society, or even globally, go about their own business, following their own projects and their own perfectly legitimate self-interests and goals, well, some of the outcomes of these behaviors and actions will have effects that are unfair on others or that give rise to particular forms of inequalities. So imagine that over a decade, young professionals with relatively modest means start moving into relatively poor urban neighborhoods, and that over this time, the neighborhood transforms in a way that suits the needs and the tastes of these young professionals, which then attracts more of them, and so on. You might find that the house prices go up, that small businesses lose out to hipster coffee shops and large chains, and suddenly people who have lived in those neighborhoods for generations find themselves driven out because they can't afford the rent anymore. They move out further away from the city, away from good schools, perhaps face even longer commutes or can't hold their former jobs. And they're faced with increased inequality and poverty through no fault of their own, and ostensibly through no one else's fault either. So really, structural injustice is the result of the fact that in order for a large number of people to flourish, be happy, or do the things they want to, others might suffer or face inequality and oppression. These then give rise to certain kinds of responsibilities to ameliorate these injustices.
So what kinds of responsibilities?
An important feature of the kind of model I'm talking about is that this is not about liability or pointing fingers at individuals who have done something wrong in particular. Rather, it's a call to collective responsibility to make things better. In that sense, it's forward-looking. It asks us to consider how our own actions and behavior, as well as those of our institutions or governments, are contributing to the oppression of others while we flourish, or to rising social, economic, political, or health-related inequalities.
Why are structural injustices of particular importance in the context of global health emergencies?
So there might be this notion that because humanitarian crises are called natural disaster, think, for example, of the phrase act of God, or that health emergencies are caused by mosquito-borne virus, for example, human responsibility is somewhat limited. But there is a reason why health crises happen where they happened, and that goes beyond there was a huge flood or there are mosquitoes in the area. There is a reason why Ebola happened and spread where it did. Stronger health systems, stronger economies would have coped better. Often, the severity of an emergency or the havoc it wreaks will also depend on the social structures and institutions of that context. Also, our responses to health emergencies tend to be acute and limited. We need to save lives, we need to attend to the injured and do so quickly. But this might overlook existing social, economic, political inequalities and might even reinforce them. So we would need to start asking ourselves, are our public health responses or policy responses inadvertently reinforcing, for example, gender discrimination, or are they inattentive to individuals with disability, for example?